your report? Perfect.
We're ready to record, so go ahead, Dina.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Almost afternoon anyway. Deanna Langman here. I'm the State Program Manager of the Montana Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC, as you probably know us. And we have some excellent information lined up for you today. We are scheduled to go about an hour and a half, and we may not go quite that long, depends a bit on questions and whatnot. But before we launch into the agenda and some of the information, I guess I would just offer a few words. The intention of this workshop today, you notice that we named it Take Action, Move Beyond SAM. And there's a reason we named it that. In our experience, sometimes companies, they usually come to PTAC for help with SAM, getting registered in SAM, which is the federal system that all companies that do business with the federal government have to be registered in. But then, they kind of stop. They think, well, I'm not getting any phone calls because, I got registered in SAM. Why isn't my phone ringing? Well, so really today, we're going to go over how you have a company can really develop a focused market strategy and take some proactive steps to find and pursue and bid on these opportunities that are out there. Okay, so it really does take more than getting registered in SAM, quite a bit more. But the other thing I would say is I would encourage you to not be overwhelmed or discouraged. We are going to go over quite a bit of information today, and not all of it applies to every company. The idea here is that as a company, your strategy for pursuing government work, well, it's going to vary from company to company. So some of the things we're going to go over today may or may not apply, but that's okay. The idea is for you to work with your advisor in your area, and we'll go over who that is and where they all are in Montana, to work through some of these additional steps so that you can continue to learn and to make progress in this market. Because the bottom line is government contracts are business opportunities. And so, and the government buys literally almost everything with few exceptions, some very common products and services, and some more complicated, more expensive. It really runs the range. And so it's kind of figuring out, where does your company fit in the whole spectrum of purchasing activity? That's going to help you develop a strategy for pursuing these opportunities. So as we get going today, we do have an agenda, and I will stick mostly to this agenda. I have a tendency to hop around just a bit. And I certainly do want to encourage you to raise your hand. Use the icon at the bottom of the screen to raise your hand. Teresa will be monitoring the chat and the raising of hands. And then we want you to, ask questions as we go. And Teresa, if you want to just unmute and say hello. And Teresa is a government contracting advisor with me here in Billings. And so she'll be kind of managing the logistics today, but please feel free. We want to make sure your questions get answered, and then we'll of course have some time at the end for open Q&A and whatnot. And there's no silly question. Just don't feel like that. You need to ask, because we want to make sure you lead with some clear action steps to make progress towards your government contracting goals, and that we get your questions answered. All right.
That is correct. I am a live person, so.
Yeah, she's real.
So you guys can reach out in via chat or raise your hand. I will unmute you. I believe that Deanna will take questions at the end of the presentation, or do you want to do it during?
If you're not mute now, make sure you're muted, just so that if there's background noise, it doesn't come through. Okay. Anyway, we're going to start, a little bit about PTAC. Well, most of you probably know who we are and what we do, because we've helped you already, but we're going to touch on that. Look at some questions you should be asking yourself. What are the purchasing thresholds, market research tools, who are the agencies that buy when I sell, how much, when, how, Small business set-asides, you've heard all these certifications. Well, if I get woman-owned small business certification or service disabled veteran-owned certification, or maybe hub zone or 8A, what does that really mean? And then we're going to kind of summarize the gateway to success, everything that we talk about, and then just some kind of contract terms and some different definitions that are helpful for you to be aware of, especially in federal contracting. We'll kind of go over those at the end. All right, great. Any questions before we start? Everybody's good? All right, perfect. So as I'm sure that you already understand, if you just by getting registered in SAM, you understand that selling, to the government, especially the federal government, it's different. It is not the same as selling to your commercial customers. It does involve learning and it involves steps. But what I would say again, don't be discouraged by that. We are here to help you along with your learning and, understanding how all this works, where to find the opportunities, etc. So as long as you are dedicated to just doing a little bit over time, the pieces will fall in place. Trust me, you will start to understand this material better, and you will begin to make progress toward your contracting business opportunities. Okay. PTAC, for those that may not quite be aware, Procurement Technical Assistance Center. It's actually a national program funded mostly by the Department of Defense. Some local funds go into it as well, but PTACs are all over the country. All the states have PTACs. Our only job is to support your company with its government contracting efforts. We are specialists. We are teachers, coaches, advisors. We are there to help you understand all this, help you through some of these systems, help you understand, where to find the opportunities, how to respond properly to an opportunity. Maybe you're getting stuck on a payment system. There's so many different payment systems. Different agencies use different ones. We do a lot of help with that. And of course, those small business certifications. So what you see there is just a snippet of the support we provide. And none of this costs any money. You are paying for PTAC services with your tax dollars already. So that's the upside, I guess. Excuse me. In Montana, and I mentioned PTAC is national, there's PTACs all over the country. In Montana, my organization, Big Sky Economic Development, is what we call the lead center. We hold the agreement with Department of Defense to provide PTAC to the whole state. And then we do that through partnerships with other organizations across Montana. So we have 6 locations across the state. In Missoula, there's a PTAC at University of Montana, and Patty Cox is the advisor there. In Kalispell, the PTAC is located at Montana West Economic Development, and Jill Duvall is the advisor there. I believe I saw Jill on the call today. I can't quite see everybody, so I'm not sure if Patty was on or not. And then in Great Falls, the PTAC is located at Great Falls Development Authority, and Lillian Sunwall and Shannon Clancy are the advisors there. And then in Lewistown, we've got Carly Wheatley and Josie Eads. They are with Snowy Mountain Development Corporation. And then over in Southwest Montana, we have Lynette. She's a remote PTAC. She doesn't necessarily have an office, but she covers, the counties that you see there, Gallatin and Silver Bow and Lewis and Clark and so forth. So no matter where you're at in Montana, there's a PTAC advisor that provides support, and we all kind of work together. So sometimes I might help a company, over in Patty's area or vice versa, and just depends on what everybody needs. So we work as a team. So don't hesitate I would encourage you actually to go to our website, montanaptac.org. There's a lot of different resource pages there and information about the types of service we provide. That's where we list all of our trainings. We're going to be holding this particular training every month just to encourage people to learn more after they have registered in SAM. All right. So keep your eye on that. We also do workshops through the year on things like how to respond to a federal RFP, how to apply for a set-aside certification, you name it. We kind of do different trainings throughout the year, and all the centers do trainings as well. Okay. And a lot of them are done now by Zoom. That way we can reach more companies, but in some locations, they're actually doing in person. So keep an eye out for that. Okay. Anything, any other PTAC advisors on the line want to add before we go? All right, great. So this presentation assumes you have some things done. We are not going to take a deep dive on all these things. I am going to touch on a few of them as we go along here. But the purpose of this particular workshop is really to get you focused on business opportunities. Where are they? How do I go about this? How do I set up safe searches? You know, in SAM, State of Montana registration, we're going to take a peek at that website and show you some things there. If you don't have some of these things done on the list, especially the top three, you need to get with your PTAC advisor in your area. Go to montanaptac.org and find out who that is by the county. You really, active registration in SAM, any company that's selling a product or service really should be active in SAM. There's no reason why you shouldn't be. You should have a completed SBA profile, and we'll take a peek at an example of what that looks like when it's not completed. Capability statement, very powerful marketing tool for your company that federal buyers expect you to have this. And we're not going to go too far on that today either, because I would encourage you to go back to your PTAC advisor and have them help you. We have examples on montanaptac.org, and we also have all of our advisors have different samples and examples of what that looks like. It contains very specific information that the federal buyers really care about. Okay. There could be other registrations that are secondary. There's certainly registration with the state of Montana. We're going to take a little bit look at that. But sometimes there's other registrations. FEMA has a portal where companies can actually sign up as a vendor with FEMA. You still have to be registered in SAM no matter what to do business with the federal government. But then there's these other, secondary registrations that are important. Army Corps of Engineers is the one listed there, and then Fed Connect is another. There are others. Those are just a couple of examples, okay? For some companies, it might make some sense to register as a vendor with some of these large primes. Northrop Grumman has the largest federal contract in the history of the United States, and a lot of it's happening in our backyard over in the Great Falls, Lewistown area, all right? So, and that's not going to apply to everybody. It is not a one size fits all. Sorry about that. I forgot to shut that off. And so it may or may not make sense for you, but talk with your PTAC advisor. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all of those large primes, and there are others, have ways that you can register as a vendor with them. So sometimes the work comes in the form of subcontract work, for companies like that or others. Registration with other states. You can be registered as a vendor with other states, Wyoming, California, Texas. Depends on your company, its reach, the nature of the products and services, etc. Opportunities aren't necessarily limited to Montana boundaries. All right. And then there's registration with other cities and counties. That's the other thing to have on your radar. Most of the companies, and I'll show an example in a minute, or most of the cities rather in the larger cities in Montana have a way to register to receive notice of opportunities, and some of the counties do too. Okay, so that's something to give some thought to. All right. And if you've been in business for a while, you've probably worked through some of these questions, but in the context of government contracting, it's because there are more steps involved and there is additional learning involved. Sometimes you have to reflect on, what is realistic here. Do I need to start small and maybe do some city county work, maybe some state work first? Go ahead. Did I hear a question? Looks like somebody isn't on mute there yet. Anyway, so, mostly though, in the federal marketplace or any state agency, the real thing to be thinking about, what problem does your company solve for that agency? They may well care that you're a woman-owned small business or a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, but they care first on how your company can help them solve a problem and fulfill a requirement that they need, okay? So that's really top of mind when you think about how you communicate with the agencies and how you present your company and so forth. What problem do you really solve for the agency? How do you stand out from your competition? You know, what really differentiates you from your competition? And this is important in government contracting too. It's important in any business relationship, but you know, and sometimes that's because you have particular expertise or technology or experience. There's something that makes you better than your competition. What is it? And then, you know, what's your reach? I mentioned earlier, you know, you can sign up as a vendor with other states. For some companies, that doesn't make any sense to do. You would never go down to Texas to work. You know, you might well just be staying here in Montana. But for others, that's a big consideration in pursuing this work, okay? One of the biggest things that we hear all the time from agencies, you need to understand what they do. You know, if you have a particular agency in mind, what is their mission? You know, before you start reaching out and asking about work, you really need to study that agency and make sure you understand what their mission is, whether or not they even buy what your company sells. And there's some ways to kind of figure that out. We'll take a look at a few, but they almost take that personal. If they get a phone call from a company and you haven't even looked at their website, not even really researched what they do or what their mission is, you know, for the public good, you know, they view themselves as providing, you know, product, service, whatever to the public as a public good. So, you know, do some homework. You know, what do they really buy? How do they usually buy it? And those are all questions that we can help you work through on a one-on-one basis. Okay, we're not going to necessarily dive into all that today. We'll touch on some of it. But these are things that we can help you work through this so that when you do approach some of these agencies and pursue opportunities, you know, you're focused, you have a good strategy in mind already. Okay. You know, for some companies, I mentioned this earlier, might mean starting smaller. You know, first of all, doing some research, you know, what agencies are the most likely customers for me? A lot of you know that already, just intuitively. Obviously, you know, if you work in construction, there's going to be opportunity. I mean, there's opportunities for construction with a lot of agencies, but in Montana, you know, our companies do a lot of work with BLM, Forest Service, Park Service. They do work with BIA, Bureau of Reclamation. You know, there's a lot of different agencies buy construction services, Army Corps of Engineers, but you know, doing some market research, figuring out, you know, state of Montana buys construction services. So do the cities and the counties, though. That might be the place to really start focusing first. You know, seek the smaller opportunities. It's tempting to think of that multi-million-dollar contract you might win. And trust me, those are out there. But oftentimes it's really nice piece of business, smaller piece of business than a multi-million-dollar contract to get started, okay? And then maybe the subcontracting, like I mentioned, you know, not necessarily with the big primes like I talked about earlier. There could be subcontracting with a prime here locally. You know, maybe a larger construction company, for example, has a federal contract or a state contract. They have to hire subs. That might be the route for you to do. It's still government contracting, but depending on your capacity as a company, your tolerance, you know, for learning all these informations and going through the steps, then maybe subcontracting is the route. So, and you can be a prime sometimes and a sub sometimes. So, you know, it's not one or the other. It can be both. All right. So just things to consider. I mentioned in the context of smaller opportunities, you know, I mentioned earlier, maybe registering with other states. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a smaller opportunity. This is just a good spot to put that link. And by the way, we'll make sure you all have these slides so that you have these links and can refer back. Okay, you're not going to be able to remember all this, but we will certainly be emailing you these slides. This is an example, cities and counties. This happens to be Missoula. Has an example where you can sign up to receive their bid notices, but it, you know, Billings certainly has that. I know Bozeman does, I believe Kalispell. So, and they don't all, you know, the smaller cities don't necessarily have that per se. The opportunities might be posted, you know, publicly in different ways, maybe in the newspaper. But either way, they're out there somewhere because it's public process. So kind of figure out where that's at. And then some federal agencies. Now you have to be registered in SAM for federal, no matter what. And that's not an option. But for some federal agencies, they actually have a spot on their website where they list smaller opportunities, 25,000 and under. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about purchasing thresholds. This is an example. They don't all have it though. This is an example of the East Side Acquisition Team, the Forest Service. They have a spot on their website where they list their smaller opportunities, because those opportunities, SAM, you get registered in SAM, so that you can do business, but SAM is also where you look for federal contracting opportunities that are typically 25,000 and over. So some agencies, if the opportunities are 25,000 and under, they might post it on their website specifically. And this happens to be an example of the Forest Service where they do that. Okay. So then one of the most important things, and we'll dive into the federal in a minute. I kind of want to go in a little bit of order, think about smaller, then let's talk about the state of Montana. I mentioned earlier, any for-profit company should absolutely be registered in SAM. I also believe and would encourage you to register as a vendor with the state of Montana. State of Montana buys all kinds of products and services from every kind of industry, just like the feds do. All right. So, but one of the things to understand as you start this journey on figuring out where you fit in the whole realm is understanding the purchasing thresholds. That's very important to understand, because that will determine how the agency procures the product or service. Plus, it will help you determine your strategy, because depending on where you fit in the purchasing spectrum, that's going to affect the way you go about finding these opportunities. All right. So as an example, the state of Montana, we'll look at the federal has different thresholds. So we'll look at that in a minute. The state of Montana, if it's $5,000 or under, that is considered a small purchase, and that's usually made on a purchase card or maybe even just a purchase order. That means that generally speaking, the contracting officers, or not even the contracting officers, actually, it's the end users, usually in an agency, maybe it's the manager. They might hold a credit card. Sometimes they can just buy it on a credit card. It doesn't go to competition is the main point here. They might have to get 3 quotes once in a while, has a best practice. But if your typical sales are 5,000 and under, then your strategy is going to be a little different, because it's not necessarily going to be posted out on the state website. All right, that's going to be a relationship situation where you maybe know what agencies buy what you sell, kind of getting to know who makes those decisions within the agency. And we'll look at some of those methods to figure out who to talk to. But 5,000 and under, generally a purchase order, maybe a credit card. All right, and not necessarily by the contracting officer, because they're not the ones holding the cards and making those buys. It's the end users, the managers, the end users in the different agencies. All right. So then there's the next threshold up, 5 to 25 or 5 to 50, depending on it's 50,000, depending on whether it's a product or a service. And this will be posted publicly on the state of Montana website. And I'll show you where that is. But generally they've got to, get 3 quotes. There's still a lot of flexibility in how they buy. And so they don't necessarily have to put it through the full scrutiny like they do on the much larger opportunities. They, 3 quotes. If it meets the eligibility criteria that they put out in the solicitation, then, that's all they need. So again, that will be posted publicly, but where does your company fit? Is it 5 and under? Is it more in the 5 to the 50? Or is it more than that? So then we get down to formal solicitations. That is where it will be definitely a competitive bid process, where you may have to submit, depends on the opportunity. They're not all the same. You might have to submit a more formal response. If it's an RFP, you might have to they might want to look at your management plan, your safety plan, just depends on the nature of the solicitation and what they're looking to buy. But those are definitely posted out on the website. And so, your strategy there might well be different too. So kind of understanding where you fit there is an important question.
Excuse me, could I
Go
ask
ahead.
a question really
Yeah.
quickly?
You
I just
betcha.
want to make sure that that we're here and that this is relevant for us.
Yes.
We're registered through SAMS for federal contracting
Yeah.
with the government.
Uh-huh.
But is this relating to state government?
Well, it's both. So government
okay.
contracting can be federal or it could be state, right? So we're kind of touching on state right now, but we're going to move into the federal.
Okay.
Okay, so we're talking about federal contracting then, or I mean, state and federal.
That is correct. Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. I'm glad you asked.
I had a question from Patricia. She asked, for the federal agencies, does that include Yellowstone and Glacier Parks or just Helena Forest?
Definitely includes Glacier and Yellowstone Park. Absolutely. And there is, the Park Service procures a lot of different products and services to support the park. Okay. So,
Thank you. That's it.
Yep. All right, great. Any more questions before I move on to, we're going to take a peek at the state website, and then we're going to move to the federal. Good, we're good. All right. So here is the state of Montana website, and I'm actually going to, I'm going to click on this hyperlink. I'm going to probably have to stop sharing and share again. So just stay with me for a minute, okay? I do want to just actually kind of show you around the website a little bit. I think it's really important to understand. Okay, is everybody with me on the state of Montana website? Teresa? Can you guys see the state procurement?
Yes.
Bureau?
Yes. we can see it.
Okay, perfect. I just don't like to move forward until if I switch screens like that, I like to ask just to make sure. All right, very good. So this is the State Procurement Bureau, and the State Procurement Bureau, they are, I guess you could say they actually are a support, or they provide service to all the different state agencies in terms of executing the contracts on behalf of a lot of the state agencies. There's some exceptions like the Department of Transportation, Fish, Wildlife and Park, and the Transportation, Montana Department of Transportation. They don't necessarily have the Procurement Bureau execute their contracts. They have their opportunities listed on their own websites, but mostly all the state agencies have the State Procurement Bureau do their contracting kind of for them. So the first thing for you to consider as a company is getting registered as a vendor with the state of Montana through their EMAX system. It stands for Electronic Montana Acquisition and Contracting System. And you think, oh my goodness, another registration. Well, it is, but look, if you made it through SAM, this is nothing. This will be really easy for you, trust me. And we can help you with this. One of the most important things, I'm just going to show you around a few different areas here. Let's scroll down a bit. You can see here that there's a registration link, and that's actually where you go to actually set up an account and begin the registration. But what I would say before that, there's also, we can help you always, and I would encourage you to go to your PTAC advisor for help with any of this. But there's actually a video on how to register, so that might be helpful to you. There's also, excuse me, when I talk a lot, I start to lose my voice. Right here, before you begin anything with the state, what I would encourage you to do is examine these commodity codes. So for companies that have been registered in SAM, you know that you had to do a bunch of research and enter a bunch of what are called NAICS codes, North American Industry Classification System. The state does not use those codes. They use commodity codes. And you do want to have all the codes that apply to what you do in your state registration. And let me just show you, I'm gonna open this up. I might have to actually,
Deanna, sorry,
Yeah.
it's Jill. We're still on that same Emacs front screen. It didn't follow us through to the commodity codes piece.
oh, I
to show
just
that we
now,
had-
yeah,
Sorry.
no, you're good, thank you. Please let me know, because I wanna make sure you can see. I just hadn't stopped sharing or shared again, I just opened it. But anyway, this is the list of commodity codes, and notice there's 16 pages. So before you begin any registration, you should be looking through all the codes and picking up what, all the codes that apply to what you do. And I can tell you for sure, don't stop. If you see a category and you think, okay, that's my category, and then you don't look at the other categories, you're gonna miss some codes, because these codes aren't necessarily, they're in pretty good order, but from experience, I know that you really need to look through all of them, because there can be different codes that apply to you that are in different categories. So you really do need to look through all of them and ask yourself, does my company provide this type of product or this type of service? Okay. And then pick up all the codes that are applicable. And do that before you begin the registration, because this is hard to do on the fly. You want to study them in advance, okay? And so those are kind of what the commodity codes look like. And they're pretty comprehensive, but none of these codes that go on these systems are perfect. Sometimes you're going to end up picking a code that's close. Some will be spot on and some will be close, all right? So just keep that in mind and don't get too worried about it. But the reason that matters in the registration is because when you finally get registered, you're going to get notices directly from the state of Montana on opportunities that match the codes that you've put in your profile. So it is important to give this some good thought, okay? So now I'm just going to go back to the main page. I have to do my stop sharing again. Stay with me. All right, is everybody with me back on the main page?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. I'm going to rely on you, Teresa, to keep us in track there. All right. So lots of, how-to videos. It talks about the codes, accessing Emacs, lots of instructional information there. But what I want to show, so I would encourage you, just go out here and the links in the presentation. So go out here and look around. But I want to show you a few more things before we move on from this page that I think you'll find very helpful. So if we go here, do you see where it says state bids and proposals? This is where the primary, this is where all the opportunities are listed for the state. Right now, looks like there's 37 opportunities on the street, everything looks like home health care services, workman comp, audit services. Are you guys with me on that page? Teresa?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. And, attorney services, legal services, I mean, you name it, it's out here. Other days, this happens to be what's here today. Tomorrow, it could be different opportunities yet. You can see there's upcoming opportunities, there's closed, ones that have been awarded. You can kind of look around there. So I'm going to go back to another section. Okay, are you with me on this, on the Emacs main page here again?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Thank you. The other thing I want to show you is right here, vendor resources. I'm just going to click on it. I'm going to click on the main page. This is a very helpful page. You guys are with me on vendor resources?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Right here, agency procurement contracts. This is a big deal. If you click on that, you can see all the different state agencies. And if you click it a little further, there's a contact person for every single different state agency. So
It's frozen right now.
what?
It's not updating on my screen, at least. It's still on the main vendor resources page.
Okay.
It's showing on our end, but
All right, that's okay. I'm gonna take my time here, make sure everybody can see it. So let's say that the Board of Public Education happens to be an agency you might sell to. Maybe you sell educational materials, maybe, I'm not sure what all they buy. That's just an example. You obviously there's a good contact here. There's a marketing opportunity for you. There's a name, there's a phone number, there's an email. We scroll down, Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, Department of Corrections. Well, I happen to know for sure they buy construction, they buy food, they buy a lot of food, you know, they buy security supplies, they buy a lot of different products and services. All these agencies do. You know, they're not all going to be your customers, but for the ones that you know, may have on your radar, they may well be. And there's contact information for all of them. If you just click on the arrows, okay? And look at how many different state agencies there are. There's a lot. And then the universities are all here. And there's contacts for the university system. So very, very helpful information from a marketing standpoint, okay? Then there is also procurement forecasts. Are you with me on that link? Teresa?
Yes, I see it. If I believe anybody else is following with us. Are you guys all good?
Yep, procurement forecast.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, I think I see.
Yeah, you exited out, so.
Okay, hang on just a second. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, this is where, you know, all the agencies will put their procurement forecast. So you can see here, this is probably going to be updated pretty soon. It's through December, but they pretty well tell you here what they're going to be buying. Can you see their forecast?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. And so, you know, what does this do for you? Well, you kind of know, if you read through it, well, you know, DEQ is going to be buying some of these kinds of services. They think they might, I mean, this is a little outdated, you know, so I would look for the new one that's coming out pretty soon. You have to keep your eyes out for it. You know, they're going to be buying, you know, plant maintenance. Down here, the Department of Justice is buying, military is buying weed sanitation, you know, weed control up here for the Department of Justice. So all different, you know, levels of products and services that they're buying there. So keep your eye out on the forecast. So I'm going to go back to the main page.
Yeah, we had a very quick question. I just want to kind of keep you updated.
Go ahead. What is it?
The question's in regard bid match, if it's the same
Yeah.
tool or not. So I just-
Yeah, I'm going to definitely get to bid match. It's a good question. And PTAC offers bid match, but I would still encourage, and bid match, our bid match will pick up federal, state, and local opportunities. But I would also encourage you to still register, you know, with the state of Montana, regardless of that, because you know, it's redundant in a way, but you might see an opportunity in our bid match one day that you don't see on the state for some reason. You just didn't notice it, or maybe it didn't come through quite right, you know, but you're going to pick it up through one or the other. So I would encourage you to, you know, register with the state no matter what. And then also our bid match, I'll talk more about that later. Okay, are you back with me where it says procurement forecast?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. All right, good.
Oh, we are on the resources, actually. So are you going back to the EMAX resources?
I'm still on the EMAX page. Are the procurement forecast? Is that what you're
No,
looking
we
at?
are at the State Procurement Bureau.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna,
Okay.
I just want to show you one more thing on this website, and then I'm gonna go back to the slide, okay? How about now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Just bearing.
Yep, so procurement forecast, agency procurement contracts, and then contracts awarded. You can actually look out here and see what companies were awarded contracts for different products and services. That's actually really informative, I think, from a strategic standpoint. You can kind of get an idea, you know, what is the state buying, who are they buying from, how much, and it tells you the amount, it tells you the company. All this is public information, all right? So, you know, there's a lot more we could go through, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to do that. What I want you to do is go out here and look around and make appointments with your PTAC advisor to help you with this. Now, remember I said Department of Transportation, Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and Architects and Engineer, they have their opportunities posted separately at these links. Okay, so keep that in mind. If those agencies are more likely your customers than some of the other ones we looked at, then you would want to be examining these links as well. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back to the slide. Hang on with me. All right. Just a second. Okay, I think we're back on the slide. You guys looking at the EMATS and State Procurement Bureau slide, right?
That is correct.
Wonderful. I'm gonna keep going then. So let's move on to federal. All right, we took a peek at the city, county, just looked at the state of Montana. Now let's think about federal. Federal also has purchasing thresholds. Very important to understand where your company fits in this spectrum. For the federal, unlike the state, the micro purchase threshold is what it's called, is 10,000 and under. So that means that a federal agency, a government purchase card holder in a federal agency can put a purchase on their credit card if it's 10,000 or under. Doesn't go to competition, you know, maybe they might get 3 quotes, some pricing, look around a little bit, but you know, mostly if your sales are 10,000 and under for your average sales, and you can, you know, your strategy is going to be different. You're going to be wanting to know in the agencies who has the purchase card, and it's not the contracting officers. It is the end users. It's the mechanic in the shop. You know, GSA has a fleet of vehicles. It's the mechanic. They're buying, you know, tools and different items, you know, through the year because they need those things to operate. If you sell tools, I'd be talking to that mechanic in the shop, you know, for GSA's fleet, for example. There's some limitations to this, you know, they can't just put construction services on a credit card. They can if it's, I think it's, if it's under 2,000, I believe is what the FAR says. Emergency services, they can also go over the 10 if they really need to. But generally speaking, the micro purchase is 10,000 and under. So if that's where your company kind of lives with its pricing, micro purchase is the way, is really the strategy to understand, and let us help you kind of figure that out. Now, if it's 10 to 25, that does get posted publicly. Well, it doesn't get posted publicly necessarily. It may out on sam.gov, but it may not. Oftentimes what the contracting officers do, and this is a contracting officer situation when it's in the 10 to 25, they will do some market research and they might find 3 companies that are active in SAM. They may call, you know, they may ask for quotes. All right. So they do have to compete it, but it's not quite, you know, like an RFP would be that's over that threshold. All right. So if your company is in that 10 to 25, I would be making sure that you have a very well-developed SBA profile. We'll take a peek at that in a while. And certainly a very developed SAM registration with all the applicable NAICS codes and so forth, and PSC, FSC codes. If you don't have that, if we've helped you, you probably do have that, because we take a lot of care to try to help you do the research, get all the right codes in there, help you develop your SBA profile, so forth. But this is why we want you to tell the best story about your company for those contracting officers that are out there looking at SAM, looking at the SBA profile, you know, et cetera, to find companies. Now, and these opportunities may or may not actually be posted on sam.gov. Sam.gov is where your registration lives, but it's also where you find opportunities. It's both. All right. So just by getting registered in SAM does not mean your phone's going to ring, though. That's why we're showing you some of this. So they may or may not be on SAM, most likely not on SAM. Okay. This is where
I have a question, Deanna, sorry.
you go ahead.
So like when the tribes post like jobs or whatever projects, are they supposed to fall under this part or the next one?
They do not fall under federal at all because the tribes are not federal. The tribes may well get federal monies, but their acquisition and their procurement procedures are completely unique to the tribe. Now, BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and Indian Health Services, they are federal agencies. And because of the Buy Indian Act, they will certainly try to do business first with Indian-owned companies, but that those are federal agencies, but that is not the same thing as the tribe. The tribe also procures, you know, lots of products and services, but their procedures are outside of the federal procedures. All right. Does that help?
Kind of, sort of, yeah, because I had a contract with one of the tribes there through the tribal council, so trying to get some stuff figured out.
Okay, well, that could be something we could help you take a peek at, Patricia, after, through a one-on-one appointment, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You betcha. And then 25, if it's 25 and above, it's going to be posted on sam.gov. There might be an exception or two. Generally speaking, it is out there on sam.gov. So if your company is 25 and over for its typical sales or unit of business, this is where you want to look, sam.gov, and we're going to take a peek at what that looks like. If it's between 25 and 250,000, the opportunity, then that means it's normally reserved for small business set aside. And we're going to look at what that actually means too. So if it's greater than 250, that means that it could be set aside for small business or one of the set aside categories. It depends on their market research, and if they have determined that there's two or more capable small businesses of fulfilling the requirement. Otherwise, it's going to be full and open competition if it's 250,000 and over. But a lot of times you'll see if it's 250,000 and over, it's still many times still set aside for small business. What does that even mean? Well, Congress expects all of these agencies, federal agencies. Now, don't get this mixed up with state. This is not state. This is federal only. Congress expects all the federal agencies, whether they're a civilian agency or a Department of Defense agency, to, quote, set aside a certain portion of their opportunities for small business. And the small business category is the overarching category, and then there are other set aside, or what the government calls socioeconomic categories, that are kind of underneath. So you'll see here, and they have goals. So the overall goal is about 23% of federal contracting opportunities are to go to small business. And then there's some subsets. So then about 3% to the service disabled, those that have been formally certified through the SBA, by the way. With one exception, there's self-certification for about a year, but that's a whole nother discussion. Woman-owned small business, all of these certifications that you see here are through the SBA, by the way. You cannot get certified as a small business. That's a function of what you put in your SAM registration for receipts and for employees, and how that matches up to the NAICS codes that you put in SAM. That's kind of a whole nother subject on its own. But generally speaking, think about, why does this matter for me? Because if your company is eligible for certification on any of these categories, hub zone, small disadvantaged business, that's typically your 8A certification, then what that means is if a federal agency sets aside an opportunity just for small, then only small businesses can bid on that opportunity. Large businesses cannot, medium businesses cannot. If they set aside an opportunity for a woman-owned small business, that means only certified woman-owned small businesses can bid on it. That does not mean if you're 51% owned by a woman, that puts you in that category. It does not. You have to get the formal certification through the SBA. There are other eligibility requirements besides just the 51% ownership. Hub zone, historically underutilized business zone. That's a function more of where your company is physically located. It's based on census tract data. Small disadvantaged business, 8A. All of these, you have to get a formal certification. We can help you with that too. It makes sense from a competitive advantage standpoint to get these certifications, because it can give you an advantage in the federal marketplace if your company qualifies. Now, it doesn't help you to just get the certification and really understand how this works and not be proactive about pursuing opportunities. So that's another thing. But food for thought. Examine whether your company might be eligible in some of these categories. All right. Research. You can go out and in interest of time, I'm probably not going to go to all these sites here. I'm going to talk about them though, because I want you to make appointments with your local advisor and go over this stuff one-on-one. All right. USA spending. We talked about, how do you know what agencies buy what you sell? Well, for federal, and these are all federal, by the way, we've moved away from the state. We're just on federal now. USAspending.gov is where you can go and do some research on what agencies buy what you sell. You can search by NAICS code, you can search by keyword, you can even search for a particular company, you can search by agency. It's amazing what you can find out. It's all public data. So you can find out what agencies bought what you sell historically, because it's all historical. How much did they spend? When did, who did they buy it from, et cetera. Federal procurement data system, kind of a similar idea. All the contracting agencies, or officers rather, have to load their historical contract data into FPDS, and then USA Spending pulls from this system. This is a little less, the interface is a little older, not as user-friendly as USA Spending. So I'd encourage you to go here and look around. We can help you with this. We can actually do pivot tables and really kind of drill down and help you figure out what agencies make the most sense for me to pursue. All right. No, we looked at forecasts at the state of Montana. Here are forecasts for the federal agencies. They're all posted out here on acquisition.gov. And I would encourage you to go out here and look around a little bit. What's BLM planning to buy the next year? What's the Park Service planning to buy? What's, it goes, it lists literally all the federal agencies, and you can kind of see, and maybe, some forecasts might be more updated than others, but it's a great tool for planning, for thinking ahead, for being proactive. And that's really what we are encouraging you to do today. All right. So finding federal opportunities. I mentioned, if it's 25,000 and over, it's going to be posted on SAM.gov. All right. There's a way that you can set up saved searches on SAM.gov so that it will match the opportunities that fit your company based on maybe keywords. You can set it up by NAICS code. You can set it up by geographic area. There's a multitude of ways to set up these saved searches. We can help you with this. I'm not going to play these videos. I don't think that would work too well on this workshop. Plus, it just takes more time. You can watch the videos. They are excellent videos. There's a video on basic saved searches, and there's a one on advanced saved searches. I would encourage you to watch both of them. Plus, there's a multitude of FAQs, very good question and answers on the Federal Service Desk website there. These are all hyperlinks. So when we send you the presentation, you can click on the link and you can watch the videos. Plus, like I said, have us help you with this. All right. We can help you set up these safe searches. It's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of frustration. If you're going around each day to these different sites and looking for opportunities, that is not a very good use of time. We need to set these systems up to work for you so that you get the notices in your email. That's the idea with the state of Montana registration. That's the idea with the SAM Safe Search also. And that's the idea with our bid match service, which I haven't talked about yet. Okay. Any questions there so far? So watch the videos and then let us help you. All right. So just to recap a little bit, registrations, make sure, not all registrations are applicable to every single company, but certainly the top three, the SAM, the state of Montana, probably some local governments, maybe some specialized ones like FEMA, the Army Corps, depends. All right. Let us help you kind of look at that and determine that. And just decide, what am I up to? What can I really accomplish here? Federal law, I think federal contracting sometimes is kind of intimidating. But look, the BLM will make a $60,000 purchase. They have smaller contracts for different things. And so don't think you're too small. Don't think it doesn't mean you for federal contracting, because it may well. Okay. And so again, come in, let's sit down, talk about your particular company and make a plan for your company. So evaluate where you really fit. I think I missed a spot. Oh, I have my slides a little bit out of order. Just some basic marketing stuff. Obviously, look professional, have a website if you can, that capability statement. We haven't looked too much at that, but that's where our advisors, can help you. There's examples on our website too. They want to see that you're a credible, a capable, responsible and responsive company, and you need to put your best face forward here. Develop kind of a capabilities pitch. You might get that contracting officer on the phone. You might only have 30 seconds. Remember I talked earlier about focus on how you can help them solve a problem, well, that's where this comes in. You know, you don't want to lead with, well, my company's a woman-owned business, I'm small. You know, they care about that in the context of their goals for set aside, okay? But really, they want to know, how can you help us solve a problem? And this is where your elevator pitch comes in. And you actually have to practice this, okay? And have this kind of ready to go, because you won't maybe have a lot of time to really communicate, you know, to that agency, how you can help them, unless you have this kind of nailed down, very professional, very polished. And we've actually had clients that we practice this with, and we help them kind of develop this. So think about developing that pitch for when you start to reach out to these agencies and go after some of these opportunities, all right? You remember earlier where I said the SBA profile is very important? Well, here's why. Let me actually show you the website real quick, and I don't want to go over time here, so I'm going to kind of speed this up a little bit. But I'm going to stop searching because I want to show you the actual website. Just stay with me a second. All right, I believe this is the one. No, I'm sorry, I apologize. Oh, I do have it pulled up. Here we go. Hang on, I'm almost there. All right, this is the actual website. Are you with me on that?
Yes, it looks like you are in there.
Yep. This is a small business administration website or a database. It's not really a website, database. And you fill this information out. Some of it's connected to SAM, but right now the link through SAM is broken. So you have to put the information in here a different way. Why does this matter? Well, let me tell you why. The contracting officers, I mentioned earlier, when they do their market research, they go to SAM and they might search by NAICS code, physical location, etc. They also go to this database and they might search same way. NAICS codes, they might search by keyword, they might search by geographic area. Well, a lot of companies, normally some of the info, because it's connected to SAM, it's separate from SAM, but it's connected. So in the past, before April, you could click on a link at the end of your SAM registration and go in here and you know, develop the profile and tell a story about your company. That link's been broken a while, so now we have to go in a different way through what's called GLS login. I'm not going to go into that. What I want you to understand from this is the companies that don't fill this out are missing an opportunity to really market their company. I just did a random search just in Montana. I used NAICS code 238910, I think, for site excavation. So these are all the companies in Montana that have site excavate or that have active SAM registrations, and they have 238910 NAICS code in their profile in SAM. And some have information and some don't. Notice, you know, there's no narrative on a few of them, and there's, you know, extensive narrative on others. Why does it matter? Well, if I'm a contracting officer doing my market research and I search by 238910 and this pulls up, where do you think my eyes are going to go? To the ones that have information or to the ones that are blank? You know, I don't know. And if we click here, let's just look at this one. It happens to be empty and it's not an indictment. It's just an education thing. All right. So this site can be slow. If we open up, we'll see that particular company, while they don't have a narrative, they probably also don't have keywords. They also don't have their performance history listed in there. And so you're really missing a chance to, you know, fully explain to your company or to the agencies what your company can do. Now, this is a federal database. The state buyers aren't going to go out here. Are you guys with me on the whole profile?
Yes, it's loading.
Okay. So, I mean, it's empty, like I expected. You know, I can usually tell. There's no narrative. There's no special equipment. You have a chance to tell this. Now, there's a lot of good NAICS codes in here. So this company they put a lot in here. They do have some keywords, actually. They have civil, residential, etc. And then no performance history at all. If I move this down, you can see. So, you know, let us help you with this because you have to go in a different way now through the GLS login, and we can help you navigate all that. But it's something that you should make a priority in federal contracting.
Yes, and we had actually excellent question on that part because Megan asked, and in regards of SBA profile, that we can actually find out what other competitors are in our industry. on this.
Excellent, excellent point. You bet. That's absolutely correct. Yep. All right. I just want to make sure you can see the slideshow again. Are you back with me on just the screenshot of the dynamic small business search?
Yeah, I think you're just showing the whole, like your previous and next slide. So you need to go back to your mode of presentation.
Yep. Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think this is it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Now we're back in business, right?
That is correct. Yes, you're back.
Thank you. All right, let's keep going. And then we'll finish up here. All right, Fed Connect is another registration. Not going to go into too much detail, except it was the precursor to SAM.gov when all the opportunities were posted publicly. Some agencies still use it. So if any of these agencies here are potential customers, you should also register on Fed Connect. It is not a government website. You'll notice the .net, not .gov, but it is a website used extensively by the agencies listed here. So let us help you with that too. And sometimes they have to post the opportunity to SAM.gov, but then they might say, go to Fed Connect for all the attachments to the solicitation, things like that. So you do want to, be set up and understand how it works. All right. So bid match, let's talk about that. There was a question earlier. We offer free bid match to clients who are actively engaged with us. That means you're coming in for one-on-one counseling, you're attending our trainings, no charge for this. We set up a profile for your company that mostly consists of salient keywords that apply to what your company does. And then and we set up a geographic region. It scrubs federal, state, and local databases, pulls in the opportunities that match your company, and you get email notifications. Now, if your company there's some exceptions here. Bid match isn't appropriate for your company if you're always going to be that 10,000 and under. None of the opportunities you are going after are going to show up, on any of the public sites. So, we have to make a one-on-one determination if bid match is really a fit for you. But generally speaking, this is a great way. You should still set up safe searches on SAM.gov, still state of Montana registration, get notices that way. But then this can also help you really get a look at what opportunities are out there on the street. And even in some cases, ones that are, coming up. Okay. So get with your local PTAC advisor to learn more about our bid match. All right. So again, just a recap, plan, develop a marketing plan. Government contracts is just another customer segment for you. You have your commercial customer and you have your government customer. You have different segments within the commercial. You have different segments within the government. Maybe it's state, maybe it's city or county, and maybe it's federal. So it's all about balance. Okay, it's not one or the other. My business is focused solely on government contracting. That's usually not a good strategy. You need to have a blend of commercial and government work. And prepare, get that capability statement, that sales pitch, secure those set aside certifications if your company qualifies. And again, we can take you through all this on an individual basis. All right. And then get out there and start looking for those opportunities. And we can teach you some other strategies about reaching out directly to the agencies, how to bid on that contract, how to understand what you're supposed to be doing for it. A lot of companies go straight to the scope of work and they don't read any of the rest of it. And there's other requirements in there. So, we'll read it along with you. We won't do it for you. We're your teacher, we're your coach and your advisor. And so just keep government contracts in mind for opportunity. And if you're committed to learning, you're going to make progress in this arena, I assure you. Now, I'm not going to go too far here. If you're doing federal contracting, no, you need to understand elements of the FAR, especially these parts. The FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulation, and it is the Bible of federal procurement. It's actually a misspelling there. It's regulation, it's not regulations. But the contracting officers have to use the FAR as their guide when they buy things for our government. So very important to understand certain elements of the FAR, all right, and the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations. But that's another topic for another day. The other thing to understand are the types of contracts. The government has a multitude of vehicles available to them. They buy, fixed price is a really intuitive method, I guess you might say, a type of contract. You put in a price that you win the contract, that's what you do the contract for. Well, there's different variations on those types of contracts, and those Part 16 discusses a lot of that. Just, and this is not all of them, it's just an example, all right? So just for your awareness, GSA schedules, you've probably heard of that. That's another vehicle. It's a multiple award schedule. If you get on the schedule, it's actually a solicitation out on sam.gov. Then agencies can, almost like a catalog, they can go and purchase off the schedule. They may compete among 3 schedule holders, you know, on an item, but that is another way the government buys things. It may or may not be a fit for your company, so don't misunderstand. We have to examine. Does your-
Tina, we had a question in regards to that GSA schedule. Megan asked, is there any way we will learn how to use the GSA schedule to look for jobs? So I just.
Yes, absolutely. We can show you that one-on-one, or there are from time to time, we have workshops on how to pursue a GSA schedule opportunity. Okay. I would say for now, one-on-one to have your immediate questions answered. Yes, but not today. That's a whole workshop by itself. Reverse auctions, makes sense for some companies. That's not a government agency there, but the government uses that particular company to do reverse auctions. The bidding goes down, not up. So you have to be really careful on your pricing on that. But for companies that sell very common, you know, commodity items, products mostly, that some agencies actually buy through the reverse auction. Okay. Know who is what. These are federal. In the federal arena, there are small business liaisons, small business representatives. They're kind of a bridge between the contracting community and the agency buyers. Sometimes you can get capability briefings by an opportunity to present your company. You can get through the small business representatives. We know a lot of them. We can help you with this part. Contracting officers, who are they? Program managers, those are your end users. Remember, I mentioned they might be the ones holding the card in the agency, and program managers are the ones kind of driving the decisions to what the agency needs to buy. It's not the contracting officer, they're just executing the buys. So program managers are, in some cases, are good to kind of understand who they are. End users, that's your example I used earlier, the mechanic in the shop, they might hold that card. Okay, so just some terminology, some titles, I guess, that are important to understand for the federal arena. All right. So again, our goal is to provide support to your company and its government contracting goals. And go to montanaptap.org, look for other trainings that are coming up. Most of our service to you is delivered through one-on-one consultation and counseling, and not necessarily through trainings like this. But I'm going to stop there. I know that's a lot. I appreciate you hanging with me. There's no way to do this in 3 bullet points. It's just impossible. It just doesn't work that way. But our intention again was to introduce you to some thinking, some action steps perhaps to take next. And most of our clients we've worked with year over year as they make progress through the different levels of learning and contracting. We help them with different things. So it's never a one-time situation where you come in and then we don't see you again. That's unusual. We stay with you and help you through all the steps and phases. All right. That's it. I'm done talking. And now I hope that you have some questions. And again, there's no silly questions. We do have other people on, other advisors on here. I can see, well, I guess Jill's the only one that's left. Jill, if you want to say hi, she's up in California. So those of you up in that neck of the woods, Jill is going to be your go-to.
We
You're
also
always
have
welcome to
Josie.
come in and see me. I'm here. Fire season, of course, as most of you know, is starting to pick up. And so things are getting a little bit busier, but you're always welcome to call, shoot me an email, come see me. I'm the newbie of the crew, although I think Teresa's pretty close to about the same time frame. So a lot of you that are up in this area worked with Doug or with Christy or with Lisa over the years. And so certainly come in. I would love to introduce myself and meet you and work with you and help you out.
Thanks, Jill.
We also have Josie from Snowy Mountain from Lewistown.
Yep. Say hi, Josie. She's over in Lewistown. Her and Carly are over at Snowy Mountain Development.
Hi, yep, as Deanna said, I'm over in the Lewistown area and we cover a lot of counties down this way, but yeah, get a hold of me if you are in my area and I'll be glad to work with you.
Thanks, Chelsea. All right. Any other questions in the chat there, Teresa? Looks like there's some.
Deanna? I have a quick question for you.
Go ahead, TJ.
Would it be appropriate to do your SBA profile before SAM registration, or does it matter?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you asked that, TJ. You can't do it unless you have an active SAM registration. It won't,
Okay.
the system doesn't see the UEI. And like I mentioned earlier, in the olden days, as my mom would like to say, you know, you would do the SAM registration, right? And you get to the end of it, right before you submit it. And there would be this big blue button and it would say, do you want to update your SBA profile? And of course, we always would say, yes, click that button. And we'd have you go in there and we'd have you prepare your keywords and your narrative in advance and all that.
Okay.
Now, those days are gone, at least for now. That link doesn't work anymore because of the changes they've made in SAM recently. And so now we have to go in through the GLS login, which is a whole nother pathway. It's another login. Let me say one more thing. Get an organized system for keeping track of usernames and passwords. People, I'm telling you, it will save your mind. If you don't start keeping track of some of this, we spend more time helping people unlock passwords and things instead of focusing on business opportunities. So get organized, save those passwords. But TJ, you have to have the SAM registration has to be active before we can go in through that GLS path, okay?
Okay.
And then we can fill in the keywords in the narrative. The NAICS codes and some of the information populates automatically from SAM, but then other information you have to manually put in, okay?
That is correct. We have a question from Dawn. She says, great info. Thank you. I'm currently interested in leasing firefighting equipment to BLM and or for a service. Who might be the best person office to contact?
Mhm. Where's your company at?
Can you unmute yourself, Dawn? You're still with us?
Oh, and Billings. Yeah, contact me or Teresa. We'll see where you're at and where you need to go. Fire contracting, wildfire contracting, that's a whole nother thing. You've got to be in SAM for sure. That's the first thing. But then after that, depending on what you're doing, there's this other system called Viper. There's all these, there's a few secondary registrations for wildfire contracting also, but will help you get in the right area. The Forest Service is the agency, kind of the lead agency, you might say, on wildfire contracting, and then other agencies can utilize the Forest Service contracts. So that's kind of how that works through a cooperative. I don't know if it's called a cooperative agreement, but there's certain very particular steps for wildfire contracting, and some of it's procured through agreement. In Viper, it's called virtual incident procurement response, I believe is what that stands for Service application. And then there's one-off contracts through what's called emergency equipment, EERAs, emergency equipment response agreement, I think is what it means. But anyway, that's in the side. We can help you with wildfire contracting no matter what you're doing. All right.
And we have a very patiently waiting Amy up. Is that correct, Amy? I see your hand up. Do you have a question for us?
I do. Yes, thank you. And it was a great webinar. Thank you for your time. My question is there a way to find out which company was awarded a contract that I had bid on? It would just help with, setting my price and, doing a little market research.
Yeah, there is for a period. Immediately, there's a period right after they make the award. Like, let's say it was out on SAM.gov, and that's where you responded to the opportunity, was where it was posted on SAM.gov. The agency will post the awardee for a period on SAM.gov. And then after that, we probably need to do a little more research in FPDS or perhaps USA Spending. There's different ways you can find out. And so it does sometimes help to look at historical pricing, but I would say this, your pricing for the federal contracts needs to be based on your business, your particular business, the cost structure in your particular business. And of course, industry, market price all plays into it, but it's it's good information to know maybe what other people bid on, but, that, you know, I wouldn't take that as the gospel. I would examine your own internal cost structure and whether, you know, market price and your cost structure, you know, kind of line up with that, and, you know, it helps, but to answer your question, yes, we can find that out. And so, Amy, where's your company?
I'm in Montana. I'm actually in Fort Smith.
Okay, so Fort Smith, that's probably Lewistown area there, you know, and we can help you here out of Billings too. I'm not sure, what county is that? I'm sorry, I should know, but oh no, you're in our, I'm getting mixed up. You are definitely, Billings is where you call.
Yes,
I'm in the wrong part of the state, Amy. Thank you. So call us and I can ask more questions and then we can try to figure that out, okay?
perfect. Thank you.
We had another question from Patricia. Can you be registered with more than one PTAC to obtain these areas, or just the registering areas through their websites? What are you referring to, Patricia? Can you be more specific for us?
I
So
think-
basically, like, to obtain these like contracts or solicitations, would we have to just register through the website to obtain those, or would we have to go to our PTAC advisors and then work with them to take those necessary steps
Yeah,
for those areas?
you bet. A lot of the steps we went over today, like setting up safe searches on sam.gov, registering with the state of Montana. I mean, certainly you can do that on your own, but I would encourage you, you know, I always say, don't suffer through it. You know, let us help you. I mean, you don't want to spend all day on this stuff, right? You want to be thinking about where are these business opportunities. So I would say, you know, call the PTAC in your area. And we also have a Native American PTAC, and they provide service to companies that are physically located on the reservations. And they're a different organization than us, but we operate under the same federal funding. And so there's Native American PTAC option also. But, you know, we would encourage you to let us help you. That's what we're here for. We're your teacher, your advisor, your coach. And so to set up on BidMatch, you have to come in here. But I would say, you know, we can help you set up state of Montana, safe searches on SAM, maybe BidMatch if it makes sense for, you know, your company. We would want to obviously talk with you some more, learn exactly what your company does and so forth. So that's what I would say. So where's your company at, Patricia? What neck of the woods in Montana?
Up in Havre, Montana, North Central area.
Yeah, so that's Great Falls. So Great Falls PTAC is the PTAC for you. That's, I believe, who covers Havre area there. Josie, correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes I get my counties kind of mixed up if I'm not looking right at them. But anyway,
No, yeah, Great Falls does cover Havre.
yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you, ladies.
You bet.
Anybody else? I don't see any messages or any questions in the chat. Anybody would like to ask a question?
No worries, and you might think of questions later, and that's okay. Listen, no silly question. You know, our contact information is on the presentation. Teresa will make sure you all get it. And then Teresa, do you think we have a good accounting of all the attendees today? That helps us for our reporting to DoD.
We actually do have a very good count. I would just ask if anybody who is using iPad with no username, if that would be very kind and drop a name in the chat box. That would be very helpful for me.
Yeah.
So I can send you the presentation. Otherwise, you would be left out because I cannot send it to iPad. So if you could do that, that would be wonderful. On the side note, Josie would like to mention their upcoming event in February. I don't know, Deanna, if that would be, if you can fill the audience on what's going on February 9th with Northrop Grumman in Lewistown.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Josie and Carly and actually in Great Falls also at Great Falls Development Authority are having in-person meetings to look on to the what's called the STAR presentation by Northrop Grumman. STAR, Strategic Teaming Alliance Roundtable is what that stands for. But as I mentioned earlier, Northrop Grumman has the largest contract in the history of the federal government with the Air Force to upgrade the Minuteman III missiles up in the Lewistown, Great Falls area. And so through the last year and in the upcoming quarters, we are supporting Northrop Grumman's efforts to kind of get the word out about this particular project. and how subcontracting may or may not look, what's really going on with the project, you know, what other opportunities may be out there besides this contract, but on February 9th, and this is on our website, by the way, both workshops on February 9th, both Great Falls and Lewistown are out on montanaptac.org. In-person meetings, one in Lewistown, one in Great Falls. To watch the STAR meeting itself is going to be presented by Northrop Grumman and virtually, but you can go into Lewistown there and sit in a room with other people and watch the presentation, and then there'll be Q&A afterward. But you do have to sign up, let Josie and Carly know if you're going to drive over to Lewistown or in Great Falls, let Lillian and Shannon know, and they can get you registered and, you know, get you all the particulars on it. But very good information. I would encourage you to learn more about it, you know, and that opportunity, you know, that particular contract, they're not going to start really working on that for, you know, probably 6-7 years, I believe, really, but they're mobilizing now to get the word out about the opportunity, what's coming up in that particular area. There's going to be workforce hubs, you know, lots of activity, and, you know, there'll be surely subcontracts, but it might be 2 and 3 tiers below Northrop Grumman contracts for some of it, because they already have some, you know, their subs, and their subs might need, you know, other subcontracting services, or you might just have an opportunity, you know, pull your food truck in. There's going to be a lot of people coming to town. You might just sell more tires or more, you know, have an opportunity for just selling to all the people and the activity around this. So might not necessarily come in the form of a government contract, is what I'm trying to say. So, but it's good to sit in and learn more. And so those, but again, in person, you can also attend virtually. And we have sent information out already. We will send more information out if you just want to attend virtually. So you can go in person, Great Falls, Lewistown, or just we'll send you the link. You have to register through Nebraska PTAC, because that's who's hosting this particular upcoming event. And then it will circle back to Montana PTAC eventually. We're just trying to coordinate, because all the states, Nebraska, Wyoming, Montana, and North Dakota is where this activity is happening. So between those PTACs and Northrop Grumman, we're kind of taking turns hosting these different STAR meetings. All right. So does that answer the question? Josie, anything you want to add? All right.
I think I don't have any more questions, so I think that would be the conclusion of this workshop.
Well, very good. Thank you all very much for sitting in, and again, follow up with us and let us help you to take some steps and make some progress here. All right. And Teresa will make sure you get the PowerPoint, and do follow up with questions. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
You're welcome.